Great, so I think we can get started with jumping into this training. Again, thanks so much everyone for joining and for taking the time to learn about how Legatics can benefit you in the corporate practice area. So I'll just start off with going through a couple of slides before I jump into a more direct demo of the platform itself. So I'll just start with introducing myself. My name is Ruth. I am a Customer Success Manager at Legatics. So I am on hand to give these trainings and demos and to support our customers in their usage and adoption of the Legatics platform. So today we're going to focus on the corporate use case and dive into how that can benefit you in your day-to-day and how Legatics can help you elevate your ways of working within this use case. So just to start, a quick run through of what we're going to be covering off today. So I will give you a quick introduction to Legatics if you're not familiar with it or if you haven't seen the platform before or even heard of the platform before. Don't worry, I will go through and explain what it is. I'll highlight some benefits of using the platform specifically for the corporate use case. I'll also highlight some of the integrations that we have available and how you can discover if your firm are using these integrations. Then we'll jump into actually how to access the platform, how to make sure that you're set up and that you can create your account. And then we'll go into the platform directly and I will demonstrate a corporate use case and a corporate matter that we have set up. So you can see the platform in action, see some lists in action, and I'll highlight some of the core functionalities that will be useful for you. And then at the end, I'll cover off some frequently asked questions that we get following these training sessions. And I'll also give you some information about what to do if you have further questions and how to access our support. So to start off with, what is Legatics? So Legatics is a collaborative transaction management platform designed by lawyers for lawyers. A lot of our team are ex-lawyers, and they were very familiar and very aware of the manual and administrative nature of a lot of the tasks within a legal transaction, and they were aware of how these obstacles really slow down progress and create a lot of barriers to efficiency. So they created Legatics, which is a shareable platform where people can work together in real time, collaborating, communicating, all on one platform instead of having to use kind of email back and forth or Teams or other messaging platforms, trying to share documents back and forth via email, long email chains. Instead, you can do all of it within one place within Legatics. So Legatics aims to increase deal efficiency by removing some of those more manual and administrative tasks, leading to higher profitability. But overall, the overall goal is to improve both your experience in the lawyer seat and also the experience for your clients. So Legatics is shareable between not only you and your colleagues within your firm, but also with other third parties and your clients, allowing everyone to have access to one place to work in real time together. So some of the benefits for using Legatics for the corporate use case specifically is, as I mentioned, reducing those administrative tasks, making the work more efficient, less manual. A huge benefit of using Legatics as well is to centralize files into one place. So instead of having different versions of files floating around in different email chains and in different Teams chats, etc., all of the files are centralized with one place, and it's very easy to control the different versions of documents. You can also streamline signing, so you can have all of your files, all of your communication in one place, and then also be able to manage the signing process from Legatics as well. So have that entire process from list creation, list management, all the way through to signing, all in one collaborative environment. Consolidating communication in Q&A is also a huge benefit because I know there is a lot of back and forth with a lot of corporate and M&A deals, and all this communication can happen centrally in one consolidated environment within Legatics. And finally, you are very easily able to track deal progress and manage status updates. So very easy for anyone to come in and see where how far the deal has progressed, what's left to be done, and who specifically has action items assigned to them in order to keep the deal moving and to keep that efficiency a top priority. So I will highlight some of those benefits within the platform. But also I do want to touch on some of the integrations that we have within Legatics, which really highlight these efficiencies and make the entire platform experience even more effective. So number one would be having the SSO. You can check internally with your firm's internet page and with your innovation or tech teams if you have SSO set up. But essentially this single sign-on process allows you to create your account. And then once you have your account created, you'll be able to sign on every time very quickly without inputting a password every time. So very useful in terms of getting up and getting started. Having DocuSign integration is also huge, especially in a corporate use case, as you can send documents directly to DocuSign through Legatics, handle the signing process, and then be able to pull these documents back into these signed versions of the documents back into Legatics. So again, very useful. And then we also have two document management system integrations, one for iManage and one for NetDocuments. And these will allow you to pull files and documents directly from these systems into Legatics without having to download them locally and then re-upload them to Legatics. So again, all of these really help with efficiency and ease of use. And I encourage you to just check internally with your firm if you have any of these integrations set up and how to use them correctly. So I'm going to jump into the platform directly now, but just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to cover off, we'll start with creating and managing your matter, so how to get started, and then we will move on to managing the participants, how to manage inviting both your colleagues and people internally, but also inviting external parties, other stakeholders to the platform. We'll then touch on the matter dashboard and how you can track progress and handle multiple lists within each of your matters. I'll also show you how to create and work within the list, and then also how to create your binder and your closing set at the end of your transaction. We'll also touch on notifications and how to set those up correctly, and also a bit about signing. So from now, I'm going to jump into the Legatics platform. So Legatics can normally be accessed with this URL, app.legatics.com. This is our public instance, and the majority of firms will be able to access Legatics through that link. It's worth checking with your internal firm, as with your internal team, because some firms do have a private instance and don't use this link, this app.legatics.com link. They have a different version. So just check internally with your team to make sure that you have the correct link. This link, whether it's this one here or if it's a different private instance link, will bring you to a page where you can create your account. It asks you for some basic information, and then you are able to create your account using your firm email address. Once you have your account and you're signed in, you'll be brought to this Legatics homepage where you can see a list of all of the matters that either you have created or that you have been invited to. So as a member of the firm, everyone within your firm has the ability to create a new matter and create matters themselves. So you don't need to rely on someone within your team to do this. You have the freedom to do this, but it's worth checking with your internal team if there is any processes around creating matters within your firm. So once you're ready and you've signed in, you've created your account, and you're ready to get started with your first matter, you very simply can create one using the Create New Matter button here on the top right-hand corner. It's a 6-step process. I won't go through every step as it's quite straightforward, but I'll just highlight a few of them. So the first step is deciding whether you would like to create a demo or a live matter. So the demo matter is a very useful Legatics feature. It is essentially a practice space where you can come in, you can test out the different functionalities, test out uploading, creating lists, importing documents, adding files, creating statuses, etc. You can test this all in a demo matter where it's completely safe. And then once you are comfortable with all of the functionalities of Legatics and you are ready to start with your first live transaction, you can start a live matter here for your live deals, add your actual stakeholders, upload all of your documents, and progress with the transaction. So when you're going through creating your matter, you can pick between live and demo. You'll be asked to input some other information such as the name of the matter, a matter number, an ID, a deal type, etc. You can input the name of the partner who is leading, and also all the offices involved. So just some background information about the matter. When you're starting with the matter, you can either start from an empty one, or you can start with a template. The option to start with a template will depend on whether your firm has already created some matter templates for you based off of usage already within the firm. So for example, if you are about to work on a corporate matter that follows the structure of very similar matters that have happened before, perhaps your organization has already set up a template for you to use. So it's worth looking into the whether or not your internal team has set up these templates for you. If they haven't, it's no problem. You can progress as normal with your empty matter, input this background information. At the beginning of your matter creation process, you can also start including different participants and different stakeholders. And then at the very last step 6, and that one is to enable the email notifications. So very straightforward to get started with your matter. I won't go through all of them, but very easy to do. And I encourage you to come in and create demo matters yourself and practice going through that process. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to jump into a matter that we already have. So as you can see, this is a demo corporate matter. And once you have created your matter, you're brought to this matter homepage. So there are two kind of next steps to do once you have created your matter. The first one would be to manage all of the different participants, add your external parties, add your colleagues, etc. to this matter, anyone who needs to have access. And then the second one will be to create your first list and create any subsequent lists after that. So I'll start with creating and adding our first participants. So by navigating up here to this manage drop down here on the top right hand corner, I can go to participants. And from here, I will be able to add different levels of users. So I can add different roles, different organizations, and then individual stakeholders. So your organization will always be set up here as number one within the lawyer role. So your organization will appear here, and the person who created the matter will be number one here. Will be the first person who created the matter. They will be the number one person here within the organization. Your organization will also be automatically marked as the matter admin. This admin responsibility gives you full control over permissions and gives you control over majority of the matter itself. So it's best practice to make sure that you keep this matter admin role internal and keep it always assigned to your own organization. You can have multiple different roles within your transaction. For example, if you needed to have buyers or sellers, we can also create new ones. For example, if we have investor, we can create a role very easily. We can add as many as we need. From there, we can add different organizations. So for example, if we need to have investor one, we can add a description of this organization if needed, and we can also start applying permissions. So throughout the demo, you're going to get very familiar with this permission table. There are a lot of different ways to add permissions and add layers of complex confidentiality to Legatics, which can be really key in ensuring that security is followed correctly, and that things that are confidential can be kept confidential. So, for example, we can, if I have two investors, investor one and investor two, and I need for some reason them to be anonymous to each other, I can make it so that investor one cannot see investor two, and save this. Likewise, if I need to change the permissions here, I can do that at any point, make it so that investor two cannot see investor one. And now these people do not know about each other. So for any reason you have this use case where you need to have multiple different organizations involved, but you need to keep confidentiality between them, possible to do this with Legatics using that permissions table. And I know that I have permissions applied once I have this red padlock icon here, and then I can change these at any point if needed. So once I have added my roles and my organizations, I can add the individual stakeholders here by adding their email addresses, or I can bulk add users by copying and pasting all of their email addresses here with these denominations if needed, and then I can choose which organization that I want to add them to. So if I have a long list of users, that's a useful feature. If I just have a few to add, then I can just add their email addresses individually here. Once I have added someone here, for example, take Sally here, I have added her to the organization, but I have not yet invited her. So her last activity is not invited. So at present, she can't access the matter, and she hasn't received an email invitation inviting her to come and see it. So I can wait. I can add people all at the start if needed, and then wait until the right time to invite them. So for example, I can add all of my stakeholders now. Then I can go away and work on my list, upload my files, etc. And then once I'm ready to invite them and ready for my stakeholders to be able to access the list and see what I have created, then I can invite them. So you can really manage this and invite people only when it's relevant, and really manage participants in a very organized way. So that is just covering off how we add different roles, organizations, and stakeholders and apply permissions throughout. From there, I'm going to go back to my Matter homepage and work on creating my first list. So you can see here, I've got a couple of different examples of some corporate lists, for example, Q&A, warranty disclosures, and a documents list. So from here, I am able to have multiple different versions of my list. And then I am able to have as many lists as I need within the transaction. So if I need to add a new list at any point, there's a couple of ways that I can do this. I can click the Create List button here. And from here, I can have a couple of different options on how I can start my list. So I can start from scratch with an empty list and input all of the information myself if I need to. Otherwise, I can use this template option. There's two different types of templates. There's internal templates that perhaps your firm have created in a similar way that I explained the Matter templates earlier, based on kind of prior usage in your firm. You may have list templates set up in a similar way to Matter templates. If there's a type of list that your firm uses over and over again within transactions, it's worth looking and investigating if they have made a template of this. There are also multiple different types of Legatics lists that we have pre-created for you. So a couple of different corporate ones here and a few different M&A ones as well for you to get started. So these will act as a baseline for your list, and then you can edit them as needed. And you can also use these as a source of inspiration. If you're not sure what's possible to handle within Legatics, these are an interesting way to come and see what other clients are using. You can also start off an existing list. So for example, if you have already created a matter with a list and you want to copy a very similar version of this, you can use an existing list as a basis and then edit off that. Or we have 3 different options for importing information into the platform. So whether your firm is used to working with Word tables or Excel spreadsheets or legal text, for example, as a schedule at the back of a document or a list of conditions, you can import this information directly into Legatics. So from here, for this example, I'm going to show you how to pull some warranty disclosures from a legal text. So I'm just going to pull up some warranty disclosures here. Just make sure that everyone can see this. So I'm going to copy and paste some warranty disclosures from my document directly into the Legatics importer. I've copied and pasted the references from the document, but I haven't. I'm not going to do any formatting at this stage. Once I have all of my text here, I can click Continue, and then Legatics will recognize the structure of my document and transform this into a Legatics list. So I don't need to go through and manually add in sections, subsections, and rows. Legatics will automatically pull that through for me. And this will really help with efficiency and kind of removing the manual element of having to come in and format your documents. So you can see that you can choose to include or not include different rows here. And then you can also change the structure if need be using these structure drop-downs. You can also choose to split things out for permission. For example, if Legatics recognizes that you have some text that might need to be defined, you can choose to split these out For example, if you wanted, if seller is written here, if you want to differentiate between multiple different sellers that you have within your list, you can choose to do that, and Legatics will add different rows and have seller 1 and seller 2 and seller 3 instead of just a seller as a blanket statement. So if you need to split these out, depending on the different stakeholders within your transaction, possible to do very simply and very quickly as well. So once I am happy with my the structure of my list, I can click continue. I'm asked to name my columns here. So for example, my reference column or my numbering column, I'll call that ref. And then for my text, I'm asked to give that a name as well. So I'll just, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll call it text, but you can call it whatever you need to. And then you are asked to give a name to your list. So I'll give it just a quick name here. You can also add permissions at this point as well. So if for any reason some of your stakeholders shouldn't be able to see this list, possible to add permissions at this stage. Once I'm happy with setting up my list, I'm brought here to my list view. And from here, I can continue to edit it as needed. So for example, we can see that it's pulled through the text that I had and my referencing. But I can add a lot more columns to this list using the plus column button here. I can add a lot more structure and a lot more definition to my list by just clicking this plus button and adding different columns. We have a lot of pre-created column types within Legatics, so we can add checkboxes, comments, dates, files, some free text, multiple select and drop down columns, some responsibility, single select, and status. So there's a lot of different options here. I'm going to jump into a list that is a bit more built out so you can see what these different column types look like and how they can be used within a corporate matter specifically. So I'm jumping in here to a different type of list. This is a Q&A list. So you can see I have my reference here with my numbers. I have the different request, and then I have a couple of different column types that are being used in order to add a lot of clarity and structure to this list and make it really easy for everyone to come in, complete their actions, and read the list with ease. So the first key column type that we have here is a space for some internal comments. So this is a comments column. So I've just come and added, for example, comments, and then we can keep it so that these comments stay internal by adding permissions within the column itself. So not only can you have permissions linked to the participants, as I showed you at the start, and also on the list itself, you can also have permissions applied to each column so that you can keep these confidential if needs be. So for example, this list is being kept confidential between the lawyers team and the seller team and one buyer here. So we have been very specific about who can see what within this particular column. So this is useful for centralizing that communication if you only need certain people to be able to see it. And anyone who has the correct permissions can come in and leave a comment here and add maybe some context around the file or add some context around the request, and you'll be able to see who left it, what their organization was, and when they did. And then you can also add comments yourself in line, so you can follow the whole conversation in one place and doesn't have to be done over multiple different mediums of communication. Another very useful column type to have here is files. So again, by adding the common type files here, we are left with a very easy way to have all of your files in one place and very clear to see which request that they are linked to. So there's a few different ways to add files. You can drag and drop files from your computer directly into the list, or you can upload them from your document management system. So as I mentioned previously, just check internally if you have either of these integrations set up. If you have the iManage, if your firm has the iManage or the NetDocuments integration set up, you will be able to pull files directly from there without having to download them onto your computer first. So this can really help with efficiency as well. You can see here I have version 3 of my file. This is a version control feature. For example, here I have V1. So this just tells me that this is a third version of a file that has been uploaded here to this particular row in this particular section. If I want to find out what the previous versions were, I can click on the three dots that appear when I hover over the file here, and then go to the version history. From there, I can see what the very first file uploaded was, who uploaded it and when, and every subsequent version that has been uploaded. So this really helps with tracking different versions of documents. If I need to check what was different between version 1 and version 3, I can download them here, save them, and then compare them myself. I can also tag them if I want to say this is the final version, or add any other context to the file. So again, you can keep all of that communication around the files, and keep all of the versions in one place again. So that really helps with reducing errors around different file versions that may be floating around. Again, you can have multiple different column types. We also have a date column here, which can be useful. For example, maybe you have deadlines, or you want to track the date that someone uploaded a document, or the date that the seller gave a reply, for example. A date column can be really useful. So you can either set dates, a hard date, or you can set a date range of depending on the nature of the transaction and how you choose to use this feature. And you can also assign responsibility. This is a responsibility column that has been named an owner. If for any reason you need to assign ownership to each of the rows, you can do that really easily just by clicking assign, and then either assigning a whole role, organization, or an individual stakeholder as the owner or the person who is responsible for the action. And then it's very simple for anyone to come in and see, okay, who is responsible for this, and who needs to take action here. Having the ability to assign the whole role or the whole organization is also really useful. For example, if I am on holidays or I'm sick and it's people are wondering who can do it instead of me, I can also assign my entire organization so that they know that something needs to be done by them here using this owner field. Another super useful column type is the statuses, and it's best practice definitely to set up different statuses within your list, because these are the main way to track the progress of the list. So by adding a different column here of status, I can create this status column. And from there, I can add a completely customizable list of statuses. So depending on the nature of the transaction, whether you have documents that are waiting to be provided, waiting to be reviewed, or things have been completed, these statuses here are completely customizable. You can add as many as you need and also change the colors associated. Once you have your statuses set up, you are able as well to set some automatic actions around these statuses. So if for an example here, if a new row has been added, it's been set that the status of that row will automatically switch to be provided, and then it will also prompt that to be provided is by the seller company limited. So we can have some automated actions so that when these actions are completed, the status of the entire row will change automatically. But these are optional. You can toggle these on and off. Sometimes people prefer to go through and change all of these statuses manually just to have that human element and just to make sure that everything is running correctly. So that's possible as well. If you want to trigger those email notifications that I mentioned previously, the way to make sure that people are receiving these email notifications are to assign them this required by button in the status column. So for example, if I have something that is a way to be provided, which is a good example, and I want to state who it's provided, who it needs to be provided by, whether it's an individual stakeholder or the entire organization, I can assign it here. And then when email alerts are sent out, it will be listed every action that is required by the person, and that information comes from this status column only. So if you do want to have email alerts that come from your list, you need to enable the email alerts at the very beginning of the matter creation process, and then use the status column to assign the tasks to different people, and that's what triggers their email notifications. Email notifications are set up at the beginning. So once you have created your matter and you have enabled those notifications, that allows for the email alerts to be sent out from the matter. but each person, each individual stakeholder decides themselves at the frequency at which they wish to receive these emails. So by going to the by clicking on your name here in the top and going to My Account, you can choose how frequently you would want to receive these notifications. So not recommended that you don't get any emails at all, but depending on the nature of the transaction, whether if it's kind of a bit more slower moving, you can choose to receive emails every day. And if it's a bit more of a faster paced deal, you can choose to receive them every hour or every 15 minutes. And then the emails will contain the actions that have been assigned to you via that status column. So that is how the email notifications currently work within Legatics. So just jumping back into my list. So we've been able to explore a couple of different column types here that are very useful. And in addition to this, we can add maybe some checkboxes if that's necessary. Also add free text. So this just allows you to type in whatever you'd like, whether that's, again, adding some more context to the row or, again, useful for centralizing that communication. You can add as many rows, as many columns as you need in line with the nature of that transaction. If you've been applying a lot of different permissions throughout, so for example, we have added permissions here on this comments column, also on this draft responses, as well as potentially having permissions set on a list level. We can also set permissions on a file level if needs be by clicking on the padlock icon. So for example, if I want to set some permissions here on this file and I want it to be that not everyone can see it, only people within my organization, I can come in and save that. And if I want to double check that all of my permissions have been applied correctly, I can navigate up here to the top right hand corner to this little eye icon, and this allows me to view the matter as another organization or a user. So for example, if I want to view the matter as someone with the buyer, as a buyer, you can see that I can no longer see the version of that file that I had. And they also cannot see those internal comments that I had as well. So this is a good way of checking if you've set a lot of permissions that everything is in line and that no one can see something that they shouldn't be able to see. So by clicking here, it returns to my view, the Matter Administrator view. And as I mentioned previously, you can add as many different permissions, upload as many files, and really customize the list to your full desire as much as needed within the transaction. So from there, once we have our kind of list all set up, we can start inviting those stakeholders by going to manage and then the participants, which will bring you back to the page we were on previously. And then you're able to invite people as needs be. And once your matter is progressing, you may have some documents that you want to send to signing and want to be able to be signed. So I know that's a core use case within corporate M&A. So I will show you just quickly how this works within Legatics. So we have our list of files here. Once we have this, once you hover over it, it shows you a couple of different actions. So for example, for this file, I have the option here to edit permissions. I also have the option here to send this to market for signing. So this will indicate that this document will need to be signed. From there, it will send my document to the signing view. So you can click up here in this top bar, go to signing, and then this will show me a list of all of the files that I have sent to signing. So I'm just going to jump quickly into a different type of list. This is a documents list, for example, and all of this has quite a good view of what things look like once they've been sent to signing. So by clicking on that little squiggly icon here, it sends the document to signing. There are two different ways that signing can be executed within Legatics. The first one is using the DocuSign integration. As mentioned before, just check internally whether your firm uses this. Very useful in terms of efficiency. So essentially, you can pull your document in here to the signing view. You're able to create an envelope and send the document over to DocuSign, for example, just by clicking on Actions, Send to DocuSign. From there, you're able to handle the process as normal within DocuSign. And then once the documents have been signed, you can then pull them back from DocuSign into Legatics. The signed versions will then appear here in this signing view and also within your list. If your firm doesn't use the DocuSign signing process and prefers to do things a bit more manually, we also have a wet ink signing process. So I'm not going to go through the whole method of how the wet ink signing works. But essentially, if you're not using DocuSign, you can use this wet ink signing process where Legatics AI feature will go through your document. It will pull out the signatory pages for you. You can then send these signatory pages to your signatories, which you can add here. Once they've signed, you can use the Legatics collate feature to then put these signed documents back into your original documents, so you have the fully executed signed version all in one place. So it's a lot less manual than using an external tool, for example, an Adobe tool to do that extraction and collation. You can do that all within Legatics. So again, I would encourage you to just check internally with your team how signing is being managed, whether it's via DocuSign, wet ink, or another way that is preferred by your firm. But just so you know that those processes are very straightforward within Legatics, so you can handle your list creation, your file sharing, and also your file signing all in one place. One of the final things within the list that I want to touch on is creating that binder at your closing set and being able to export the list at different points. So once I just have my list view here, I can also import and export information. So if I have, for example, another table, or if I have another list of requests that I need to add into my Legatics list, I can import extra information in the same way that I did previously by either copying and pasting my warranty disclosures, or perhaps it's importing a Word table or an Excel spreadsheet. So I can always add extra information. And if I want to export the information and share it externally, for example, if I have people who are maybe not using Legatics that I need to share the list with, then I can do that too. So I can choose to either export all of the files, or I can choose to export the entire list, and then I can choose which columns I would want to export, what format I want it in, and whether I wanted to save it to my computer or into my document management system, depending on if the integration is set up. From there, we can also, by navigating up here to the top to the more, these three dots, and clicking on it, you are given a couple of different options about managing your matter, or managing your list. And one of those options is to create a binder, a Bible, or a closing set, however you choose to say it. So from there, if I want to give my binder a name, I can choose which columns I want to include. I can also add permissions onto my binder. So for example, if I want to keep this internal, if I want to only share it with certain stakeholders, I can choose to do that. Then just click create my binder. And then I'm just navigating here with this pop-up. It brings me directly to my binder. So it's pulled through my request column and my files. So I have the final version of all of my files all in one place. And then I can choose to export this binder, either exporting the files here. So I can choose which files I would like to include. I can also choose to include a Word index with giving context to the files. Majority of firms will have it so that any exports that you do, whether it's a list export or a binder export, is exported in the house style of your firm. So it'll have your firm logo and your firm colors, but it's worth checking internally that you have this set up. And then you can choose where to save your files. And again, if I want to export the whole list, I can choose to do that as well. And those downloads will be like a very professional output with all of the final versions of the files. All of the we will have the context of the request, all with the branding, colors, etc. of your firm. So it'll only take you a couple of seconds to have all of this final output all in one place. So that is how you create your binder. If you need to find that binder again at any point, binders appear here also in the list dashboard view alongside any list that you have created. And again, if you have permissions around a certain list, you'll have this red padlock icon. So for any reason you have permissions around your binder, you can do that too. If you need to change the list permissions, you can do that by just hovering over, and these three icons will appear. You can choose to rename any of your lists, and also you can choose to delete the list if you need to. I also want to touch on this dashboard view. For example, you can see that you have all of your lists here, but you also can see the status bar and the progress bar of how things are progressing within each list. So this status bar is linked to that status column that we had inside of the list. So based on the statuses that you created and that you have assigned either manually by going through and changing each of the statuses manually by hand, or using those automated actions, that will populate here the dashboard view and this progress bar. So you can see what's left to be provided, what's awaiting review, how much has been completed. And then just by scrolling down a little bit, you get a bit more granular detail about who has been assigned the action in the status column. So for example, to be provided, we have a list here of who has been assigned these statuses. So we can see exactly who is perhaps blocking the transaction or who is kind of slowing down the deal. And this allows you just to come in and see very quickly, okay, am I holding anything up? Is someone on my team holding anything up? And let's get this deal moving, and let's get these documents either provided or get the review completed, etc. So if you in particular have anything that has been assigned to you within that status column, you will have this blue take action button. So whether it's been assigned to you or assigned to your organization, you'll have this take action here. So that it's super easy if you're working on multiple different matters for you to come in and say, okay, let's check the progress. What do I need to do? By clicking on this take action button here, it brings you to the exact area where you need to complete the action. So once I've changed the status here, that will disappear once I've completed the action that's required of me. And then I no longer have that take action button in particular. And then I can go through and see what else is needed to be completed by me. So very easy to come in and take control of any outstanding items that are left. And finally, if you need to have more information about what has been completed so far within your list and within your matter, you can use the audit trail. So by navigating up here to the top right-hand corner next to the eye icon where we viewed as, and next to the manage where we added our participants, we have the audit trail. So this is a long list of every single action that has been taken throughout the entire matter. It records things as small as just viewing, but also bigger things around changing statuses, creating lists, creating binders, adding rows and sections. It's a really long list of everything that has been carried out throughout the entire matter in all of the lists. So it's a very detailed documentation of who did what and when and where within the list that they made changes or added things or deleted things, etc. So this really helps as well with that transparency and with centralizing all of those actions so that you know who did what, and then also using that dashboard who still needs to complete an action. So if for any reason you need to look back and check who edited something, or a change was made and you weren't sure by who or why they did it, you can use this audit trail feature to come back, track when it happened, why it happened, and then reach out to that person, maybe ask them for a bit more information. So that audit trail feature is very useful. And the final thing I want to highlight for you is this help feature that we have. So we here have a link to our knowledge base. There is a huge amount of articles around on our knowledge base around getting started with Legatics, the lists and the different functionalities that we highlighted, the different types of signing. And also what's very useful is this use case feature, where you can read a little bit more about the different corporate use cases that are quite common between our customers. So reading a bit more about how documents lists can be managed, how Q&A can be managed, and how warranty disclosures can be managed within Legatics. Also, you can find information about our support team. So if you have any questions, any technical issues around maybe kind of logging in, or you are struggling with a functionality that should work correctly, you can contact our support team, support@legatics.com. They work normal UK working hours, so 9 till 5:30, Monday to Friday. But I understand that maybe deals and the nature of deals will have you working a bit later than 5:30 UK time, especially depending where you are in the world, or earlier. So you can always contact us on this phone line here, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including public and bank holidays. So that phone line is always available if you have an emergency. So from there, I'm going to jump back into those slides. As you can see, we kind of covered off all of these things, including kind of how to get set up with creating your account, how to create your first matter, how to add those participants, how the dashboard works, and how you can have multiple lists, and how to edit and modify and personalize those lists in line with your way of working and your transaction. Also creating binders and tackling a little bit of signing, and how those notifications work as well. So for the final few minutes of the session, I'm just going to cover off some common questions that we get around following these training sessions. So hopefully these will help clear up a couple of key points that we covered off today. So number one is, what actions trigger email notifications? And I think I talked about that pretty extensively, but it is all related to those statuses and those actions required by within the list, within the status column of the list. So those are the ways that you can trigger notifications. And then those notifications will need to have been turned on at the beginning of the matter creation process, and the people within each stakeholder can decide themselves the frequency at which they receive those notifications, whether it's every day or every hour, every 15 minutes. So question 2 is, how can I set up a matter or a list template? So this as well, if, as I mentioned kind of previously, if you find yourself creating very, very similar types of matters, different types, very similar types of matters and very similar lists over and over again, can be really useful to set up a template so that you don't have to keep inputting the same column types every single time, adding the same statuses every single time, and have this already pre-templated for you. So the people who have control to create this type of templates will be your system admins, and they can give you a template admin access. So if you are interested in setting up a matter or a list template, I would contact your internal IT or innovation team, whoever is the owner of the Legatics platform internally, and ask them about this process. Question number 3 is, how can I share progress or updates with people who aren't using Legatics? So Legatics is very shareable. As we saw, you can add different role organizations and stakeholders. That's also how you add external parties. So those external parties don't have to have Legatics licenses themselves. They are covered within your license. So that is how you invite them, any external parties that you're working with. If for any reason that they are not on the Legatics platform, you can use that list export feature to export the list, and then you'll be able to share with them exactly what the list looks like. Once you export your list, you can include which columns would be relevant for them, also the files, and they'll also be able to see the different statuses and the progress of the list at that point. So if they aren't involved, if they aren't using the Legatics platform, you can use that list export to share with them. And then question 4 is, if can anyone set up a matter? So anyone within your organization, any of your colleagues and yourself can come in and set up a matter using that blue create a matter button that we saw at the very start in your homepage. External parties cannot set up a matter. They can only be invited to ones that are pre-existing. So you and any of your colleagues can come in and set up matters as needed. So I really encourage you to after this call to go in to create your account in Legatics. Just double check which URL you need to access the platform, and then create your own demo matter and to play around with these functionalities and to test it out yourself. So this is the very end of our webinar. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll be able to give you a couple of minutes back in order to go in and try and access the platform and to play around with the demo matter. So this webinar has been recorded, so we'll be able to share the recording with you afterwards if you need to go through it again in your own time. And we will share that with your firms and they will distribute it to you. So thanks again for all of your time and attention, and I look forward to seeing a lot of new demo matters being created on the platform from yourselves after this training. So thanks again. Thanks for everyone for your attention. Have a good day.